Well, this is a short presentation called The Dream of Being There in the Digital Age. It's quick and dirty, as the organizers have requested, and it's just a way to introduce to some of the topics that I find really interesting in a digital history or digital humanities approach. About 30 years ago, the TV series Star Trek Next Generation presented us with the idea of the holodeck. The holodeck is the ultimate illusion of being there. It's a space where you can step into any time or any form of reality, and it constitutes a perfect illusion around you, with people you can integrate with, all within this computer simulation. And it's sort of very telling for our vision of the future, that we imagine this perfect place that can transform ourselves into anything, without of course asking ourselves the basic philosophical questions. Are we really there, or is this thing we're seeing really there? And I think the instance with holodeck is interesting because it can be said to be the goal of many of the technologies that we use in history dissemination and history teaching, and in museums and in other places where we do history. We hope to, from new media, actually be able to place people in the past. It's a development I see has begun with the first mechanical mediations of reality. The development from painting a picture to actually use a mechanical device, a camera, to capture a portion of reality and transform it down to a piece of paper. I think that with the photograph, we made an important step towards losing the understanding that every representation is just that, a representation, because this mechanical device that we put into between ourselves and the capturing of reality has convinced us that something magical is happening, as we are actually able to reproduce reality. From pictures we can go to moving pictures, who makes the illusion of reality even more immersive. We can go on to big screen motion pictures today, who blend in massive amounts of extras and actors and almost unlimited budget with new computer technology, who can place us in a movie theater with a sound system that actually makes us feel like we are on the beaches when the English army was evacuated from Dunkirk in 1940. I went to this movie actually in an IMAX theater, and I actually believe that with the Stuka bombers diving down on the beach, that the sound of the Stuka bomber was actually higher, larger, louder in the movie theater than it was in reality on the beaches in 1940. And of course, the new technologies that we are very interested in today, because they've come in Oculus Rift and HTC's systems that makes them affordable for a larger area, the new virtual reality systems that sort of offer us the idea of stepping into a alternative reality, or if you're talking history, stepping into the past. There's a huge amount of interest of these new technologies among people who are doing history. Denmark's broadcasting system, DR, made a campaign in connection with their new TV series, The Story of Denmark, that aired in 2017, where they travel the country offering people to step into history. You could actually, on a green screen, you could step into history and see yourself as one of the people who celebrated the Danish national football team who won the European Championship in 1992. Interesting, of course, because the idea of stepping into history, seen from a television presenter, is actually to step into a TV program. If you can see yourself in a TV program who is from 1992, you describe that as you have stepped into history. Of course, and all of this is layer of medias and reproductions and different interpretations of what is reality, what is the past, what is philosophy. But we think we can step into the past by stepping into a TV program. We don't just see it with the digital technologies, we also see it in a very big focus on reenactment these years, with large scale groups who do this hobby and dress up as Vikings or dress up as Civil War soldiers in America and stages elaborate fights or markets and go into a very tiny detail of their equipment, discussing accuracy, and again living this idea when they're doing it themselves or when they're presenting it for other people, this idea that we can create a place where it feels like the observer is stepping into the past. We also see it in the museum's focus on living history, where they have volunteers walking around in authentic clothes, like in Den Gamle By, the old city, the old town in Aarhus, which is the other picture here, where people walk around enacting roles from the past. For instance, in the old town in Gamle By, they're not allowed to speak like contemporary people. They have to stay in character. If you ask them, can I take a selfie with you with this my new phone, they'll just say, what is that sort of strange device you're holding there? So again, they sort of offer us the illusion that we're actually walking around in a town in the 1860s, surrounded by people from the 1860s. Another example from Moesgaard Museum, Moesgaard Museum in Aarhus, is a room that recreates, or supposedly recreates, a battle from the Bronze Age. You walk in, as you can see in the picture, you walk in through a hallway, and then you have big screens on either side of the room where opposing armies stand and shout at each other, banging their shields with their spears. And then at the height of the experience, they charge each other, of course, running towards each other, creating the illusion that you are in the midst of this battle. You actually feel how it would be to stand in the middle of a battle, supposedly in the Bronze Ages. The basic question I think is extremely interesting in all these cases is, when did it become the purpose of doing history that we should feel like we were there ourselves? Because it creates a lot of questions for us as scientists, as historians. What is being there at all? What kind of a being is there? When I, as a 21st century person, how can I, what is going on with this illusion that I can step into the 13th century, taking myself along with all my 21st century skills, all my 21st century way of looking at things, that I should be transformed into the 13th century, suddenly standing in the middle of a middle-aged town. Why is that good history? Why is that good history dissemination? Why is that good history teaching? Why is that the purpose of the museum? Because it is, of course, an extremely illusory thought that we can actually stand there. We can take the instance here with the battle from the Bronze Ages. Which kind of stupid Bronze Age person would place himself in the middle of two opposing armies and standing looking to one side and the other? What is this about being there? What kind of understanding does this give me about the Bronze Ages? Does this give me anything that I didn't know before? The same thing about, is the purpose of history to see yourself on a television screen being one of the people celebrating the 1992 victory of the Danish national team? Or is understanding history a question of walking through the streets of the old town in Denmark and meeting a volunteer who pretends like she is a maid from the 1860s? What kind of history teaching, what kind of history dissemination, what kind of history understanding is at place here? But I would argue that all these new technologies has sort of made it a lot of our purpose with history to create an illusion of being there, without us ever considering, is this actually a good idea? Is the illusion, creating the illusion of being there, actually, does it serve any purpose at all, despite giving a experience of having experienced the past, whatever that means? One of the ways forward from analyzing the situation, I think, would go to media theory. One of the books that meant a lot for me, David Boltner's and Richard Grusin's Remediation. It's an old book from 1999, I think, 2001. But it's a very interesting book because it operates with three basic principles: remediation, immediacy, and hypermediacy. Immediacy being the theory that the purpose of each media is to sort of create an illusion of that the media is not there. Of course, this is an illusion. The media uses a lot of conventions, a lot of tricks, a lot of different approaches to create for us the illusion that it's not there, that it's gone, and we are experiencing, watching, feeling reality in one way or another. The other strategy for some media is hypermediacy, where the media is present and the authenticity or the illusion of closeness is created about control of the media, and a lot of different approaches to the media. That could be a web page, for instance, that has a lot of different places you can click on, a lot of different pictures, videos, etc., where the media, so to speak, is very much present and at your control. But the basic and most interesting concept in this is, I think, the principle of remediation. That every new media is a remediation of older media. This is, of course, in some way a banal an insight, but it gives us the tools to understand how each media uses immediacy and hypermediacy to create an illusion of closeness by looking on how is this media actually using strategies from past media, who again are using strategies from past media, making clearer how this illusion of closeness is constituted or created. We can take an instant again with the Bronze Age battle from Moscow. Of course, this is not, if we look at it again, this is not, of course, anything to do with an actual Bronze Age battle in Moscow. What it uses is remediation of how the big screen movies developed. The big screen movies, widescreen movies of theaters started in the 50s, 60s, and today with IMAX movies and everything, with large screens that present big tableaus, and by the sheer size of the screens, the sheer size and the sheer volume of the sound, the sheer volume of sound, create an immersive illusion that sort of encapsulates you. And when you can think of nothing else as what is a screen, you create an illusion that you are actually someplace else, that you are actually in front of these armies. Of course, as we talked about before, the notion is, of course, preposterous. You are not standing between two Bronze Age armies. And of course, your body knows it. You are eating popcorn, you're drinking cola, you're not storming the DJ beaches or being evacuated from Dunkirk. But you create an illusion that you are actually experiencing it so much that it's ingrained in our language. We talk about these films are very realistic. These films are very accurate. These films show us how it really was. And the experience of Moscow, of course, is doing exactly the same. It's just a remediation in a museum room of the big screen's conventions on how they create the illusion of closeness. Another example, the other picture is an interactive map that is at Kongernes Jelling, a Viking museum in Jelling in Denmark, where you can control the map, push forward and backward in time, then the map changes. You can touch on different objects, reading different texts, looking at different pictures. That's an example where the first thing is an example of immediacy. This is an example of hypermediacy. The media is very much present. It's very much visible. and it presents itself with a lot of opportunity for you to explore. I would argue that maybe we should focus on, both in history teaching and in museums, on this form of technology, because it's less of an illusion. It's a visible medium that you can interact with yourself. Where the other parts, for instance, with living history, reenactment, no, not necessarily reenactment, but living history and immersive rooms like this is more just uses tricks of the trade and film industry to create an illusion of closeness without asking itself this basic question: what do we want with that? What is the purpose of creating this illusion when we know it's illusion, when we know that this doesn't create any kind of experience about how it was to be in a Bronze Age battle? And the whole question about is it relevant how I, as a 21st century person, would feel if I stood in a Bronze Age battle, also is not being addressed. It's just an experience. It's just an experience using remediated technologies from other media to create an illusion that you have experienced something without considering what that something is. So, I would say that what I think is very interesting to focus on is that in a time where with ever more immersive digital and non-digital illusion of presence, we need to ask when the illusion of presence became the definition of history and what this means for history in museums and the education system. Is the goal really to give people the illusions of being somehow in history when we are clearly putting them in a hypermediate reality with an illusion of intermediacy based on conventions from television, movies and theatre plays? Why should we interest ourselves for that? For instance, with some of the tools in media theory. I think it's very important we focus. It's a very important subject because it will give us a clear understanding of what we are doing when we do history in a digital age. I think it's not because I mean we should do digital history or history at all in a certain way, but I think we at least owe ourselves and the viewers to contemplate what kind of presupposed definitions, presupposed illusions, presupposed pre-existing not pre-existing conditions, but what does we move with? What is inbred in our way of looking at this when we chooses this illusion of being there as something that is very important for doing history? What do we say with that without actually know that we're saying it? It also gives us a possibility to develop better tools on how to use digital technology in, for instance, history teaching. If we understand how these different media types, the museum, exhibition, theater, the experience room, the virtual reality technology, if we understand how these digital technologies create the illusion of presence, we can use that knowledge to create better tools where we actually know what we want to achieve and which media technology we should choose to achieve that end. And it results in being become better to use digital technologies to further the aims of history dissemination and teaching, rather than letting the hidden conventions of these technologies control dissemination and teaching. So therefore I would say one of the subjects that I find extremely interesting for digital humanities and digital histories is a further understanding on how this ton of new digital technologies that offer us different kind of experience, how they actually function and on which premises they function. Because of course this is some work has been done on this before, but I still mean there's a lot of more work here to be done to understanding what we are saying about history and what we are teaching the public history is when we are using all these different kind of technologies, and tell everybody that this is a good way of doing history. So, thank you.